In just 6 months, Florida lost over $6 billion in tourism revenue, and it was its own fault. That isn't exaggerated. It's not even speculation. It is a fact backed by statistics, from the shuttered shops on Fort Myers Beach to the for-sale signs scattered across once prosperous Canadian-owned residences in Clearwater. Florida, a state renowned for its sunshine, snowbirds, and seasonal prosperity, was born in this way. It had the power to ruin the travel and tourism sector. It was not the result of an external invasion or a natural disaster, but rather of leaders. Economic stability was traded for political spectacle. How about the consequences? It's worse than anyone thought it would be. The collapse? No one wanted to believe. For many years in Florida, the Canadian snowbird was one of the most reliable economic drivers in North America. Every winter, thousands of seniors would relocate south, escape the cold, and boost Florida's economy this winter. They weren't on vacation. They were seasonal residents who maintained second homes for 6 months of the year, rented homes, paid property taxes, went grocery shopping, visited the doctor, and dined out. According to Statistics Canada, the average Canadian snowbird household spent $33,000 in Florida every winter. By contrast, the average American tourist spends about $1,200 on a short vacation. Think about that for a moment. To match the economic impact of one snowbird household, 28 American tourist families would need to travel to Florida. That's a big difference. It's a totally different economy. But within a few months, this golden goose was strangled. The warnings were clear. The warning signs could not be concealed. They were acting as emergency sirens as early as January 2025. Winter rental reservations dropped 31%. In Canada, real estate searches decreased by 45%. The number of flights from Canada to Florida dropped by 38%. Anyone looking at the numbers could see the economic storm. It was instantaneous, measurable, and dangerous. But Florida officials ignored it and did nothing. They dismissed the Canadian market's collapse as a minor setback, one that can easily be filled by domestic travelers. That decision was disastrous. Let's be clear, this disaster was not brought on by a shift in the market. Inflation, interest rates, and the Canadian dollar weren't the only factors. Policy was the driving force behind it. It was a deliberate choice to anger and alienate one of Florida's most significant economic contributors. First, the federal government lit the match: tariffs and trade disputes. Discuss making Canada the 51st state. President Trump raised tariffs to 35% on goods from one of America's oldest trading partners. Projecting authority and strength is the goal. The cost? There were economic repercussions worth billions of dollars, starting with the sharp drop in air travel between Canada and Florida. Then Florida poured gasoline on the match, an irate salutation. Rather than diffusing the situation, state politicians doubled down on laws that specifically targeted the snowbird community. New regulations that required Canadian visitors staying longer than 30 days to register with US authorities, including fingerprinting and background checks, interrupted decades of seamless cross-border travel. Senate Bill 2164 restricted foreign ownership of real estate under the guise of national security. Although Canadians were not identified by name, the message was clear. You no longer own this place. It worked, but not in the way politicians had hoped. Canadians began selling off properties in Florida on a massive scale. Real estate brokers reported record numbers of Canadian postings from Sarasota to Fort Lauderdale. According to one company, there are now up to 18 listings every quarter, up from 2 or 4 previously. This protest also lasts a long time. This is an ongoing capital flight. Real people, real effects. From an ideological standpoint, this was a win for Tallahassee politicians. They radiated nationalism, toughness, and control. But for everyday Floridians who rely on those snowbird funds to pay their rent, keep their businesses running, or just put food on the table, it has been a nightmare. Local businesses in tourist-heavy areas like Clearwater and Naples are reporting 30 to 50% drops in revenue. According to the South Florida Business Journal, a number of businesses saw a 70% decline in revenue in February 2025, the busiest month for tourists. Waitstaff, bartenders, cleaners, and service workers are losing their jobs, working fewer hours, and earning less money. Previously, a doctor at a local clinic said he saw about 30 Canadian patients a week. it's less than 10 now. It goes beyond businesses. It speaks directly to the heart of public finance. The cascading effect has an impact on local governance. Municipalities in Florida rely heavily on property taxes for funding. Snowbirds own it. As Canadians sell off, those properties are either empty or seeing a steep drop in value. This results in a $2.1 billion loss in property tax revenue. Reductions in city resources also result in the loss of critical services. Fire departments delay modernizing their apparatus. School operations are stopped by police officers. According to a report by the University of Central Florida, unemployment in some coastal areas is expected to increase from 4% to 6%, which would be devastating for the working class. And it's not just Florida that's changing. Other countries are seizing the opportunity. While Florida burns, rivals are moving swiftly and strategically. Mexico extended visitor stays to 180 days, streamlined visa requirements, and began promoting affordable private healthcare. Better access to affordable, safe, and English-friendly public healthcare is offered in Portugal and Spain. An obvious jab at Florida's hostility was the You Are Welcome Here campaign, which united Caribbean countries. Along with improved weather, now these countries are also providing respect. For a generation of retirees who have money to spend and choices to make, that is the deciding factor. Canadians are now reinvesting their Florida real estate profits in homes in these competing countries. Florida suffered more than just financial losses. They are draining long-term capital investment, the kind of money that does more than just fill hotel rooms. Florida's tourism industry is expanding overall, despite lawmakers' incessant repetition of the same talking point. They defend themselves with the single statistic that more domestic travel has resulted in a slight increase in the total number of tourists. But this is what they fail to mention. Domestic travelers spend less money. They don't stay long. They don't pay local property taxes. They don't maintain summer homes. And they don't make regular contributions to the community. It's not just apples to oranges. It's more like apples to crumbs. Florida's economy was designed to thrive on valuable, long-term residents rather than transient tourists. Attempting to replace snowbirds with families who travel by car in Ohio is not just impractical. It is impossible from a mathematical standpoint. A business plan broke. Florida's tourism industry did not decline. It was no longer credible. That's the real cost. Spreadsheets also don't convey trust. It wasn't a monetary amount that motivated Canadians to sell their homes, forgo their traditional winter vacations, and invest overseas. It has to do with feeling excluded. What had once felt like a second home now felt bureaucratic, unwelcoming, and frightening. Imagine earning tens of thousands of dollars annually in a neighborhood and owning a property for 15 years, only to be told that you now need to provide your fingerprints and register as a foreign danger. It's not a policy. It's humiliation. Furthermore, once trust has been lost, it is hard to regain. This is just the beginning. The strain is already making the real estate market stutter. In highly seasonal areas, home values can decrease by as much as 30%. A debt investment, condos that were first marketed as being perfect for snowbird rentals, are now empty. Commercial buildings are defaulting as small businesses fail. The worst is yet to come. As the value of these properties drops, banks that own the mortgages and loans linked to them start to cut back on lending. It is an early warning sign of a credit crunch, and for a state that depends on development, like Florida, that would be like cutting off the air. There may be a liquidity crisis the next time investment slows down. Projects stalled and jobs in various industries vanished as a result of politicians' need to appear tough. This extends beyond Florida. This is an illustration of self-defeating economic behavior. It is the result of leaders prioritizing political rhetoric over facts, focusing on publicity over stability, and sacrificing long-term success for short-term recognition. Although this pattern has been seen before, it hasn't always produced such clear outcomes. The market is valued at $6.6 billion. Thousands of jobs were impacted. Communities as a whole became unstable. Not the war or the climate, but the ego. But what about the scary part? This story can be repeated anywhere. This is the harsh truth. You ought to learn more about this whole disaster if this video opened your eyes. It wasn't required. It was publicly and continuously warned about. but politics won out. If you would like to see more analysis like this, click like and consider subscribing. I cover non-dramatic, data-driven stories that other media won't cover.